Kagam. First and foremost, we give all praises, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God Yahweh, by Hashem, Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai. Shalom, shalom. Today, we're going to go into a couple of pictures and some good information on idolatry, right? And the conversion of the Native Americans. As we see here in this picture, we got our indigenous brothers getting forced into Christianity, right? This is a telling picture. You can see a lot happening in this picture also. So first, if you look on the left, look at the soldiers, right? The soldiers, they got their swords drawn, right? This is just showing what type of timing, Christianity in the early ages were on, right? A lot of times you was either convert to Christianity or you die, right? And this is history that a lot of Christians don't know, but we're here to actually present it, right? So obviously you see the popes, right? You see the chapels, they got the cross, and they're making the Native Americans bow down, right? So let me actually switch to here. So it says Native Americans forced into Christianity. It says throughout colonial and American history, Native Americans were subjected to forced conversions to Christianity. It says these brothers and sisters, they were forced into this religion, right? This wasn't their history. This wasn't their culture. It says to Christianity through policies of cultures, assimilations, and violence. This was carried out primarily throughout the use of Indian boarding schools and the establishment of mission systems with the goal of eradicating native cultures and religions, right? So we're gonna go into some scriptures, man. We're gonna go into why this happened to our people. But I'm passing to Malachi.
Khan Shalom, Sergeant Malachi, sons of Jacob Tulsa. Here we got the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28. And the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, is very important when it comes to knowing who the Israelites are in these last days. This is a huge indicator for us to help understand through prophecy who the Israelites are, right? So, let me read this. It says, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. Now, just in case you're extremely new, I'm going to give you a little bit of context. Deuteronomy chapter 28 is going into the covenant that the Most High God made with his chosen people, the Israelites. And is basically along the lines of this. If you obey my commandments, you will get blessings. Then the first 15 verses, he names blessings. And then he said, if you will not obey my commandments, you will receive curses. And then he goes on to list curses for the rest of the chapter. So this is one of the curses. The Lord bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. So we understand that the white man throughout history has, used an eagle to symbolize himself when he's in power, right? The Romans, the Greeks, the Americans, so on and so forth, right? This is the symbol they like to use to identify themselves as. Can we get the next verse, Baba Kashah? It says, what happened to, go back, King. Pull up the chapter, brother, Baba Kashah. Now go back where we was at with the swift as the eagle flieth. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Verse 50, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. So when Esau came over here, or otherwise known as the white man, when he came over here to so-called colonize, we actually know that he raped, robbed, and murdered the Native Americans, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans. When he came over to do that, he didn't show favor to the young or the old. He did the same thing to old people, the same thing to young people, and he completely, for the most part, eradicated these people and just, put them into subjection and forced Christianity on them, their version of Christianity. Now go to verse 32, Baba Shah. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thy sons and all of this. So basically what I want you to understand from me going here is that these things that are listed out in Deuteronomy chapter 28 are the result of the Israelites not obeying God's commandments. Now, the fact that these events came upon the Native Americans, the so-called Hispanic people, and the so-called blacks, the fact that these things happen to these groups of people is a huge indicator that these are the people who God made that covenant with. These are the true Israelites of the Bible. These people are who Deuteronomy, who the entire Bible was written for, man. These are the Israelites of the Bible. Another curse that happened to our people. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. So when this was happening to our people, there was no strength in our hands to necessarily overturn what was going on. There was instances where people resisted and they put up a resistance, but on a large scale, there was nothing that they were able to do to stop this. The Native Americans still went into slavery under subjection. The blacks still went into slavery under subjection, the Aztecs, the Incas. And that's why we have America as it stands today with the white man at the top, of the hierarchy, and the natives, blacks, and Hispanics at the bottom, even though this country and this empire was built off the backs of the natives, blacks, and Hispanics. Because there's no might in our hands, and our children are still subject to these people. We still have to, enroll them in their educational systems. We still have to apply by their rules, or they can send child protective services to take your children from you without your permission. And once again, there will be no might in your hands. That show up with police and guns to take your children from you, right? Because we belong to them. We are slaves still. We're subject to these people, but go ahead. The next verse, Baba Kashaw. Verse 45, the water. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed. Why are these curses going to come upon us? It says, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. So this is the reason why these things happen to the blacks, natives, and Hispanics. Now, I just want to emphasize once again, God said these things were going to happen to his chosen people. So this is a huge indicator of who his chosen people are, the groups that suffered from these curses, right? Now, you might say, well, plenty of people have been through some of those things. But in a large sense, on a large scale, who fits these curses to a T? Who do these curses apply to the most? You will see that it applies to the natives, blacks, and Hispanics altogether the most. But I yield.
Gang. So if we're going back to this picture, they, they're being tormented, forced their religion, right? But we got examples in the Bible on our mentality of what we should do when we're presented with a chance, or when they're forcing something on us, right? So let's just go to Exodus 20:3. It says, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Now, you might have heard this, but this goes far, because this is the root. This is the greatest commandment. Love the Most High God with all that heart, soul, and might. This is bigger than just, it could be in the back of your head, like, of course I got to serve God, but like, you really got to put him first. And we always got to have that mentality of how our everything relies on us serving Yahweh. You know what I'm saying? If we're not serving them, that's when we go into slavery. That's when this can happen to us, right? Your children getting taken away by a nation of fierce countenance, right? You have no might, child's, slavery. You know what I'm saying? Social, all kinds of just government programs that destroy our households, our family, right? And it goes back to us got to come back to our strength and our power, which is the Most High God, Yahweh by Shema Mashiach Shai. All right. So let's keep going to the next verse. It says, "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." Right. So you can't make these things and do what to them? Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, right? So you can't make something and just bow down to it. Now, if we go into that etymology word of bow down, it says bow. It says to bend. It says, what's the other one?
I think you want the Webster Merriam Dictionary.
Let me get that right now. Bow down, Webster. All right, there we go. Bow down. It says to show weakness by agreeing to the demands. The water. It says to agree to the demands. Man, we throughout all, like, every time we go and agree to the demands of Christianity, we get conquered. Every time we bow down to Christianity, start serving white Jesus, right? When we start serving, love everybody in the whole world and love your enemies, right? We know what that's going into. But when we start actually throwing off the laws, statutes, and commandments and start following Christianity, we start getting enslaved. We start getting oppressed. We start getting destroyed. We start having black on black violence. We start having our men become homosexuals. All this stuff goes back into serving the Lord thy God. And we don't serve the Most High God, right? And his law, statute, commandments, all these atrocities come upon us, right? Let's get this. It says, this is why you should fear the Most High God and serve him. It says, the Lord killeth and maketh alive. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. If we want our nation to actually thrive, to actually be a strong nation, actually have an army, actually have resources, financial literacy, and we want to have all the success as Deuteronomy 28 verse 1 talks about, if we want to have powership in the world, we got to start serving him who has the power, which is Yahweh, right? We can't go into Christianity and serve their gods. We can't go into Islam and serve their gods. Allah is not going to bring us out of this. Buddha is not going to bring us out of this, but what's going to bring us out of this is serving Yahweh. He's the one that brings us out of our state that we're in, right? We got to remember who's the source, right? This was a mentality of Paul. Paul had this understanding. He said, let's start at verse 35. It says, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? It's nothing that Esau can do to us that's going to make us stop serving Yahweh. It shouldn't. Nothing should take you away from this truth. Nothing should take you away. It don't matter if Christianity's having prosperity. It shouldn't have that. You seen Islam have prosperity. It doesn't matter. It's just we have to endure this race. We have to keep remembering to serve the Most High God. It says, as is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded. So Paul's saying he's persuaded. Now, these are big things. Tribulation, persecution, the sword. These are heavy matters. But Paul sat down and thought about these things. And he said he's persuaded that what? That neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come. All right, let me see if I can get that next verse. This one's kind of weird. Let's get this. It says, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Yahushua our Lord. So there's nothing that Esau can do to our people that should make us draw away from Yahweh and serving him through his only begotten son, Hamashiach Yahushua. And I got one more. This is Joshua 24:15. It says, and if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And if we keep that mentality and that spirit that Joshua was rolling in, our people will actually become stronger and come back to the state which we rightfully are, kings and princesses. But that's all I have. Malachi, you had anything else?
No, sir.
And with that, we give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High God, Yahweh by Shem Hamashiach Yahushai. It's been your boy, Soldier Zion.
Soldier Malachi, Soldier Tulsa. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Yeah. You're on mute, bro.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, sweet.
Oh boy. All praises. Good class from the soldiers. Good class from the soldiers, man. Y'all see what we got up? We got the Spanish Inquisition part 2. Last time we touched on this, we didn't get to the Inquisition because there's so much information to cover and go over. It's a lot of history to go over. And we just trying to, summarize it just in case y'all want to get into the history. Y'all have a good tool guide to get in there, right? We had touched on the massacre of the Jews in 1391, right? We had touched on the massacre of the Jews in Spain in 1391. We're gonna get into it some more, right? We're gonna get into it some more. I want to speak on this fair use copyright disclaimer. It says, notwithstanding the provisions of Section 106 and 106A, the fair use of a copyrighted work, including such use by reproduction in copies, phone recorders, or by any other means specified by that section for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, or research, is not an infringement of copyright. I went there because we are going to play a video today. We're going to get into a video today. First, we're going to get into this book. Mahar, if you got anything on your book and you want to share the screen or you want to jump in, you already know. Let me know you got the green bean.
All right, bet.
I tried to zoom in. That didn't work. There, I got to zoom in on here. Okay, bet. The Inquisition. This is a history of the Jews by Solomon Grazel. Right, a history of the Jews by Solomon Grazel. It says, as the 15th century continued, the Christian clergy realized that much still remained to be done before Judaism in Spain could be considered completely defeated. The number of conversions was decreasing, since those Jews who had remained Jews, having withstood the threats during the period of rioting, were evidently the more loyal and devoted adherents of the old faith. Even worse than that, from the point of view of the clergy, was the obvious disloyalty to the new faith on the part of many new Christians who were less than half-hearted in the observance of Christian ceremonies. So, a little bit what's going on. We are dealing with the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church, right? A lot of people would have you, like to think and believe that Christianity got spread by just sharing the gospel. That didn't happen, right? It didn't happen like that. It wasn't just men on voyages and they're going around and they're saying Jesus and they're sharing the good news with you, right? That's not how Christianity got spread, right? We know what happened over here in the Americas, but what was going on over there? What was going on over there in Europe? What was going on in Spain? What was going on in Africa? What was happening? What was really happening? It wasn't just them walking up to people saying, "Can I share the gospel with you?" And that's just how everybody, that's how Christianity spread. And oh my God, it was just so amazing. They were coming with great breakdowns and they were sharing so much love. That's not how Christianity got spread. It's just not. This is one of the Inquisition is one of the reasons it got spread. The Crusades is one of the reasons it got spread. The bloodshed of many, the slavery, the transatlantic slave trade is one of the reasons it got spread. Through blood, right? Let's keep reading. It says, from the Jews living nearby, the new Christians were receiving instructions and assistance in their efforts to observe as much of Judaism as was possible. So these guys are what we know as conversos, right? Conversos, the Jews who converted to Christianity. They converted to Christianity to, first off, not die, right? Not die, not get punished, not have certain things and rights taken away from them because they, serve their religion. So they converted to Christianity. They got baptized. And after that, they had hid to keep the Most High God's laws. They had hid themselves to keep the Torah. They were still observing Passover in a land that wasn't the Holy Land. They were keeping it in Spain. For all those that's, you can't keep the laws in another land. We were doing it.
We were doing it.
We were doing it. Go ahead, King.
I want to pull up something on this book I got. You just spoke on it, but why not read it real quick? Let me see. I'm pulling my screen. Almost there. All right, bam. All right. Zoom in right here.
Hey, that website tough, ain't it?
Yeah, this is actually my first time using it. But you told me about it last time we was live or something like that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Got the little flip of the page on there.
Yeah.
So this is The Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean by Chrysler Edward. This is actually the book that I've been reading to y'all a little bit. So it's the same book. I heard you touched on a point, so I'm just going to read it out of the book. It says, it's actually a lot right here, but I'm going to read this part. It says, I'm going to start. This is where we left off. This is literally where we left off. I'm going to read through this paragraph real quick. It says, Ferrant Martinez, a friar in Seville. So this is an enemy of the Jews. He hates the Israelites. And this is the setting. This is the place where we was at in Spain. We were in the place called Seville. It says, this place provided the spark following a frenzied sermon in which he accused Jews of everything from causing the Black Plague to killing Christian children and drinking their blood. He incited the crowd to rise up and destroy the accursed race. Descending on Seville's Jewish quarters, the rebel slaughtered 400,000 men, women, and children. What is now known in Jewish history as the massacre of 1391 had commenced. So you have a man named Ferrant Martinez. He accused us of doing horrendous things, and all of the people went along with it because they didn't like the Jews that were in Spain. The Jews were actually gaining a lot of momentum. We had a lot of things set up in Spain for a long time. I'm not going to lie, we had a lot of motion. If you don't know what I mean by that, we had a lot of wealth. We had a lot of businesses. We had a lot of pull in this community, and it was more pull. We had more motion, more strength, more power, more money than Spaniards, than any other people over there. So this was literally like the reason why a lot of people went along with it, because they didn't like how we were progressing in Spain. So whenever Ferrant Martinez, he didn't like it. So whenever he said all of this, when he said that we caused the Black Plague, when they said that we was killing Christian children, when they said that we was drinking their blood after we killed them, everybody went with it. And this led to, like it says right here, 4,000 men, women, and children dying. And this is what everyone knows as the massacre of 1391. Now watch this. It says, pogroms spread from city to city. The mob's admonition, convert or die, resulted in 100,000 dead Jews and 100,000 converts for Jesus. So this literally led to so many of our people dying, literally dying, and then 100,000 Jews converting from Judaism to Christianity. Because if they didn't, they were going to die. And you can just see here, the next paragraph says, after a bloody year, peace was gradually restored in Spain. It says Spain's 300,000 remaining Jews came forth from hiding places and reconstructed their lives. Those who remained faithful continued to live as Jews, but under a host of restrictions. But the 100,000 converted Jews, freed from religious bondage, rose over the next century to positions of power that had been denied them as Jews, called conversos, or new Christians, to distinguish them from the dominant old Christians. So basically, you get the picture. And if you don't, I'll briefly kind of break down this paragraph. There was a lot of bloodshed in that year.
Slovakia.
Yep.
They didn't go over there and they didn't go over there with the gospel, bro.
No.
I thought they was doing the ministry of Paul. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of went over
they was doing God's work, huh?
I thought, I know they killed.
As we research history, you're gonna find out Christianity ain't never been just super. You're gonna find out that it was a lot of bloodshed. I know y'all think we violent. A lot of people call Israelites violent. We a hate group, bro. Look, this is literally hate. This is literally hate. They killed 100,000 people. Well, up here it says there ended up being 4,000 men slaughtered. Then you got 100 dead Jews within 1 year in one place in Spain, just in Spain. Then you got 100,000 people. They literally said convert or die. I mean, that was the mob's admonition. That's their slogan they was running around with. Convert or die.
Yep.
Die, bro.
Yep. Hey, that's just what it is, man. It's a precept that popped up in my head. Second Thessalonians 2:8. It says, and then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonder. The wicked got to be revealed, man. And a lot of people, like you said, hate us. We haven't done anything to anybody. But you read all of this, and they just say, oh, it was just a dark past, and let bygones be bygones, and forget about it, and it's nothing, and stop forcing religion. Y'all, they literally force religion on everybody, quite literally through means of death and torture. And we're gonna get to it here in a second. Go ahead, King.
Psalms chapter 50, verse 16. But unto the wicked, God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes, or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth? This is the type of the type of situation we have when you have wicked people take hold of the Most High God's law, statutes, and commandments, the book of the law, the testimonies, and the so-called truth.
Yeah.
That's what ended up happening.
They don't know what to do with it, right? Let's keep reading. I'm gonna read down here. I'm starting down here. It says, unfortunately, zealous churchmen saw only one way of turning insincere Christians into sincere ones. Theirs was not the way of mercy and kindness by which people converted under the threat of death might gradually have gained respect for their new faith. Theirs was a way of fear and force. Loudly, various churchmen, especially members of the religious orders of monks, began to advocate the introduction of the Inquisition of Spain. So they were trying to convert people through fear and force. It wasn't through mercy and kindness and we just love everybody and you got to show them the love of Christ. That's not what happened. This is not how Christianity got spread amongst the earth. Okay? This isn't God's army at work. Right? This was wickedness. It says, loudly, various churchmen, especially members of the religious orders of monks, began to advocate the introduction of the Inquisition into Spain. Mind you, the Inquisition did not originate in Spain. There had already been Inquisitions going on. You had Inquisitions going on in Europe. You had them going on everywhere. Even there was an Inquisition that even happened in the Americas. There was an Inquisition that happened there. It was an Inquisition that happened in Spain, Europe, Germany, Poland, you name it. There were Inquisitions everywhere. Why? It was to find heresy. What's heresy, you may ask? Anything against the Catholic Church. If it's not their doctrine, you going off. If it's not what they teach, you going off. It's heresy. You're a heretic. That's what's happening. And then it's such a cold system. They make you go to the Father and confess, see what you're about, see what you're doing. They did a lot of crafty stuff. Right? And it was all wickedness. I'm gonna just be honest. It was all wickedness. This is the whole reason why Martin Luther came and was like, nah, this is bogus. But even what he came with was bogus.
All right, what should the people, when you say Martin Luther, if you was to give a blanket statement of how they should identify the importance of him, what would you say? What was he responsible for?
He was responsible for the faith only doctrine.
Say that again.
He was responsible for the faith only doctrine.
So you're saying, now go ahead. You right there with me.
Meaning, it's no longer by works, but it's only by faith. No man can be justified by works. That's what Martin Luther came with. And it wasn't because of you couldn't do the works in the Bible. You can do the works of the Bible. It was because you couldn't do the works of the Roman Catholicism. It was too strenuous. And he wrote his 90 something theses on them. But we don't like Martin Luther, to be honest with you. We'll get into that another time. But let's just keep reading. It says, the Inquisition had long been an office of the Catholic Church dedicated to the special task of finding and punishing heresy, which was interpreted to mean any violation of the laws and beliefs of the church. Nobody had ever liked the Inquisition. People feared it because it pried into their private lives, because its investigations were secret, and because most of the inquisitors were stern and relentless persecutors of anyone who differed from the official religion. These are the men they sent to your houses. They knock on your door. Let us in. It's the clergy. It's the officer. It's the this. It's the that. They go in and they look around the house. You got candles lit and you're celebrating the Sabbath day. That's heresy. Come here. Come with me. Come with me. They're going to put them candles out and they're going to take you down. Now the Inquisition begins. You got something going on. You got anything weird going on concerning Judaism.
If it looks like you serving God, that's heresy.
That's heresy. We kind of can't let you do that.
You keeping the Sabbath? That's heresy. We gotta interrogate you. If you don't know what inquisition mean, it's kind of like to question, to interrogate. So they pulling up. The Inquisition pulling up at your house.
They pulling up.
Asking you questions.
Yeah. They're doing all of this. My bad. Go ahead.
You got to understand this too. Just day-to-day life is insane. Any wrong move, and you could be accused of heresy.
Yep. How
you eat your food, when you eat your food. Being in public is scary.
Not eating pork.
Not eating pork. Imagine if you had rubbed one of your neighbors the wrong way.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing anything. They could just accuse you of heresy. You walking on thin ice. It's not like here in America where you can kind of, you got the freedom to kind of keep the Sabbath. It was getting crazy. It's insane. You walking on thin ice.
Yep. And they think they're doing God a service. Really, they're serving their own lust and their own bellies. That's what we see a lot through this. In this book, it goes into a lot of Jews' personal lives and how they were getting treated.
Hey,
it's insane.
I could imagine it being an extreme presence of fear in your day-to-day life. One, because we get to speak about the Inquisition in the light we want to based off our research.
Right.
Everyone knows that the church, a lot of people know that the church is doing things wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. But imagine if you spoke on that. You're done.
Yep.
One wrong word. You think everybody at the table you talking to about, the church might come up and somebody might say, this is wrong.
What you mean?
They finna call them dogs on you. Next thing you know, a week later, them boys is at your house.
Yep.
Over with.
Hey, a lot of people. My bad.
Imagine if people was trying to get certain economic advantages.
Mm-hmm.
Greed and money and envy kicking in. Lying. Bearing false witness. All kind of things is kicking off. Day-to-day life. People is dying out here because of this. That's on you.
There were a lot of people that were serious and that really believed. And if they thought you were doing heresy, it didn't matter if you were family or not. They're going to tell. Didn't matter. It didn't matter.
You run into a Karen.
You run into a Karen. Oh, I'm telling you. You're like, bro, not doing anything. No, you're a heretic. Next thing you know, you're going down, right? We had to practice something that was called endogamy. We had to practice something that was called endogamy, right? Endogamy is the practice of marrying somebody within your how can I explain it? Your tribe, your community, or your religion. A lot of our women could not marry a conversos or a Christian. Why? Because if they marry, she no longer can practice Judaism in secret. Her husband will tell, hold on, what was that? And she kind of trying to explain it like how I just grew up. We did this on this day, and then we do this with the lamb, and we do that. He like, nah, that's heresy. And guess what? He finna go straight to them people. So we had to practice endogamy. And if there was a woman that these Christians wanted, this book goes over this. If there was a woman these Christians wanted and she didn't marry anybody, they would automatically assume that she was a heretic. Because why isn't she marrying anybody? Why isn't she marrying any Christians? What's going on? Why is she single? What's happening? And they found out she was a Jew. Her family was wealthy. This was a Jew. Her family was wealthy. The French, I believe the French king owed them money. Her family money. But since he found out he was a Jew, he got rid of all of it. He deaded the debt.
He was justified in not paying her family back, not paying her back, because she was practicing Judaism.
She was a heretic. That's the game these guys is playing, right? Let's get back to this and let's keep reading. Let's keep reading. Oh God, let me see where I'm at. It says, people feared it because it pried into their private lives, because its investigations were secret, and because most of the inquisitors were stern and relentless persecutors of anyone who differed from the official religion. The civil governments disliked it because the Inquisition acted with complete independence and disregarded the country's legal system. Besides, punishment by the Inquisition always meant confiscation of property, which made the so-called Holy Office that much richer while depriving the royal treasury of taxable wealth. So they can come and get your things. Whatever assets you think you own. It's always been this way. Whenever these folks is in rulership, you don't own a thing. They allow you to think you own it. Nah, we can come snatch that up because we heard you was a heretic. We heard you believe in heresy, and you kept Passover, and you don't eat pork. So we can take all of your assets, and we out of there. They weren't doing this through the name of Jesus. Let's just be honest. Paul teaches us there is no more condemnation in Christ. Why are they condemning people? Why are they killing and destroying? When Christ literally didn't come to kill and destroy. Not at that time. He had freed people from the law of sin and death. Now you telling me it's heresy and death? That's what Christ brought? It's heresy and death now. No, he came so you can repent. But what these guys is on, nah. We finna destroy you. You got a point you want to make out?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the scripture.
Go ahead. I'm finna be right back.
All right. Where is it at? Bear with me, y'all. You quoted it earlier. Okay, I just pulled it up. I got two of them. Let's go. This is John chapter 16 and verse 2. It says, "And they shall put you out of the synagogues. Yet the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God service." Hey, this is a heavy scripture right there. We can literally see this scripture coming to life. You hear me? Coming to life during this time period, dealing with the Inquisition. You got people snitching on people for serving God and saying that it's heresy, and them being killed, all of their assets being seized. I'm pretty sure Aharon gonna go into it, but you have situations where you'll be questioned and interrogated, and they'll throw you in prison. And then every day that you're in prison, you got to pay for it.
You got to pay for it.
You have to pay them for being in prison.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab one more. Let's see. Matthew. It should be 5. This is Matthew chapter 5 and verse 10. It says, "Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." This is a real thing. That's Matthew 5 and 10. These brothers and sisters was literally being persecuted for righteousness' sakes. And we got to gird up our strength and our minds to be able to handle this, because at some point, similar things will happen to us or to our children, to our children's children. So we got to start putting on that whole armor of God so that we can endure these things. Period. That's what this time is for right here. Preparing yourself for stuff like this. It's on you.
That's a fact. Let me get back to it. It says the Inquisition began its works. It says events played into the hands of those of the favor of the Inquisition. The secret Jews could not hope to keep their secret forever. In 1480, a number of prominent new Christians were caught celebrating the Seder on the first night of Passover. The Seder is basically the dinner, the ceremonial dinner of Passover. It says Queen Isabella of Castile, a very pious Christian, was so shocked by this that she agreed to have the Inquisition established itself in her country. The Pope had already reluctantly consented. The Morenos now became frantic and attempted to stop the Inquisition by force, but all their plots and plans came to naught. A few years later, the Inquisition was introduced also into Aragon after an agreement had been reached with King Ferdinand on the division of the confiscated property. Thus were established the torture chambers in which thousands were made to suffer. Which thousands were made to suffer. Thus were kindled the fires in which other thousands were burned alive. For the Inquisition continued to function in Spain down to the end of the 18th century. So that's a long time. That's about what, 400 years? Oh, 400 years from 14 something, maybe a little bit around 300 years since it's late 1400s. But this went on for a long time, and we finna get into how they did it, right? And auto de fe or act of faith. This is what it is. That's what it says. Act of faith was the name given to the public executions of the Inquisition's punishment. It was held in the public square of the town, made gay with decorations. So if you don't know what gay is, for you young people, it means happy. It's a celebration. They dressed it up. Since it was the occasion for a popular holiday, spectators crowded every roof and window. Royalty and nobility in gala attire sat on seats especially provided for them. A scaffold in the pulpit occupied the center of the square. As the church bells tolled, the procession filed in. Helmeted soldiers carried their halberds. Hooded monks and priests chanted praises to God, and the servants of the Inquisition shepherded the condemned prisoners. The prisoners were arrayed facing the pulpit. They looked gaunt after months of confinement, hunger, and terror. Some were ill and crippled by the torture they had suffered. Each prisoner carried a candle. Each wore a tunic from which the spectators could judge and decree a blasphemy or a heresy for which he or she had been convicted. A preacher delivered a long sermon. Then the chief inquisitor announced the punishments. Penance, stripes, confiscation, imprisonment, or death. Those destined to die were handed over to the civil government, since the church followed the letter of the divine law against the taking of a life. So these guys were so out of it. The church itself can't kill you, so they hand you over unto the civil government, and they'll kill you. Since they couldn't, have blood on their hand. I want to go to this real quick. This is going to go over the auto de fe. Remember this, what was it? The Fair Use Act, right? Mar, you can see it? Y'all can see my screen?
Yep.
Bet. Let me know if you can hear it.
Have in the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Bet.
Certain right of control on the institution that didn't exist in the Middle Ages.
On February 6, 1481, the first auto de fe ceremony, translation act of faith, commences in Seville. At this event, which will become the trademark of the Spanish Inquisition, over 100 converso men and women accused of secretly practicing the Jewish faith are judged before the church and state. 6 pay the ultimate price by being burned at the stake.
At the heart of the auto was always a sermon. And the Dominicans would select their finest orator, the one with the strongest voice. And sometimes these sermons would go on for half an hour, 2 hours. The participants are stripped of all their dignity. Their heads are shaved. That includes women as well as men. Men's beards are taken off, and in the case of Spain, a man's virility resided in his beard, so it was a very unpleasant thing to do to him. The idea behind the ceremony was, at all times, to humiliate the penitents and to show the congregation what the penalty was for engaging in heresy.
Even people who didn't have much education and weren't interested in theological niceties and weren't even sure of the creeds that they repeated or the prayers that they said, they knew what was going on at a properly staged auto de fe.
It was a terrifying spectacle meant to set limits in people's minds about what they could say, what they could think, what they could believe.
Within a year of its establishment, 1,500 conversos accused of Judaizing have been brought to trial, and hundreds more are condemned to death.
The number of people who were burned to death at one time was, even by present-day standards, staggering. You'd have 28 people burnt at one time. You'd have 70 people burnt at one time. And in the largest auto that was ever held, 109 people were put on the stake at once.
Unlike most medieval,
This was going on. That's an auto de fe, or an act of faith being taken place, right? Let me see if I can find this other timestamp. Going over the torture that they were doing, because they were torturing people. This, like I said earlier, they didn't spread the gospel through wise saying and eloquent speech and just going out and doing ministry work and everybody's having a great time. That's not what happened. That's not what happened, right? Christianity didn't spread like that.
Theoretically Christians. This is obviously a tailor-made case for the Inquisition.
National religion. The Spanish Inquisition imprisons innocent citizens, confiscates property, destroys families, and puts thousands of people to death. What it did little of, according to historians, is the thing for which it has become so famous: torture.
One of the things that has been firmly established by the New Inquisition scholarship is precisely that torture was used very, very sparingly by the Inquisition.
Torture is used to elicit a confession, purely and simply. And once the confession is there, the torture stops. Inquisitors get very angry when their subordinates torture individuals who are too old, too sick, dying of leprosy, suspected of mental illness, and the like. They don't want those individuals tortured, and they don't torture children.
No matter how infrequent, the Spanish have precise rules for their torture. Prisoners, male and female, remain naked throughout the session with only a small cloth to cover their private parts.
This is what they was doing. This is what was taking place, right? Now a lot of people are like, yeah, but they didn't do it often. They didn't do a whole lot of it. Who cares, bro? They were torturing people because they were keeping God's laws. Who cares? They were literally burning people at the stake. One video described it like this: when they put you on that fire, all of your organs would shrivel up because of the lack of moisture. So all your organs will shrivel up inside of you. And you'll feel all of your flesh burning until your nerves burn, and then you can't feel anything. Your nerves is what give you the sense of pain or pleasure. So when it's going to burn until it reaches your nerves, then you won't feel anything. You're choking, you're suffering. So it's like, I don't know. This is what got Christianity so popular. This is what got it on the map, right? It wasn't through honest work. It wasn't through cracking open the scriptures and let's all have a Bible study. This isn't how it got put on the map. It got put on the map through torture, through burning, killing people. That's what happened, right? Did you want to say something, Mike?
This is crazy. Like, I guess it almost make me feel like, just because I know that I'm an Israelite, it almost made me feel like they're trying to justify themselves, you know?
Yeah.
Trying to justify they torturing, killing people, burning people alive. So it's really whack. So my mind immediately jumped to, dang, you gonna try and justify this? Then my mind jumped to, okay, the Lord said they're gonna get rewarded double. Reward her double. That's insane. Their judgment is going to be double this. And this is just some of the atrocities. This is just some of it. We ain't even go to, this is literally what we going over predominantly today is the Spanish Inquisition. What's happening in Spain?
What's happening in Spain?
What's happening in Spain? There's so much more to it. Once they literally forbidded us from living in Spain and Portugal, and a lot of our people died or tried to blend in, turning conversos and just be Christians in these places. We were still kicked out, so we had to find a different place to go. But a lot of our people ended up trying to go to the Americas, in the Caribbean, and you'll see that they even followed us over there.
Yep.
There's a lot of atrocities. Mexico, Brazil, Peru. You're gonna see there's way more stuff going on than you think. Way more stuff going on. But I'm gonna let you get back to that video.
It's way more. I was just gonna see if I can pull the image up, man. It was just crazy. But they would all get together, and it was kind of like a celebration. It was like a celebration. It was even one time it was described that a couple men got thrown in prison, and they were awaiting an auto da fe. 2 men died in prison, so they just automatically assumed they was guilty, right? So they go to the auto da fe. 3 men are alive, 2 men are dead. They put they put logs and, tie everybody up to get ready for the fire. They went so far to they made statues of the 2 men that died and burned the statues since they couldn't burn them. That's how far they were going. It was insane. And they lit that on fire, right? They lit that on fire. Let me see. Let's jump down in here. We almost done. We trying to just get as much in as possible, right? It says a tragic story. It is also a story of triumph. The tragedy is not one-sided, for it arouses pity not alone for those thousands who suffer torture and death, but also for the Christian religion, all of whose lofty ideas thus went up in the flames. The triumph, on the other hand, is one-sided, for despite all its efforts in the Inquisition failed to destroy Judaism. Even in the Iberian Peninsula, once more, it afforded proof that force cannot prevail against the human spirit. The Inquisition, it must be remembered, did not have any authority over the Jews, but only over those who had been converted to Christianity. Nevertheless, the inquisitors and others of the Christian clergy were convinced that it was impossible to hold the Morenos in line unless all associates with their former relatives and friends were cut off. So if you converted, They wanted you to cut off everybody you knew. They wanted you to cut off everybody you knew because no, they can come back in and convert you. Right? It says if all the rest of the Jews could be forced out of the country or into the church, it would be another triumph. And it would also be much easier to keep watch over the new Christians. Consequently, the clergy continually urged King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella to clear their lands of Jews and Mohammedans. Mohammedans is Muslims. But the royal couple hesitated. Not only were Jews still prominent in the government, and not only did the influential Moranos and their friends oppose such a move, but the country still needed the Jews. At the time, Ferdinand and Isabella were planning to conquer the kingdom of Granada, the last bit of territory still held in the Iberian Peninsula by the Mohammedans. It would have weakened them, for if the great effort they had caused the economic upheaval involved in the departure of thousands of businessmen and artisans. So those businessmen and artisans were us, the Jews. They couldn't get rid of us yet. It was a bad economic move. It was a bad economic move, right? But what eventually ended up happening, right? It says on January 2nd, 1492, Granada surrendered to the army of Ferdinand and Isabella for the first time since the Mohammedan conquest in 711. The Iberian Peninsula was entirely in the hands of Christians. The way was now clear for the Spanish rulers to rid themselves of the Jews. On March 31st, in one of the halls of the beautiful Alhambra, the palace of the kings of Granada, Ferdinand and Isabella signed a decree expelling the Jews from Castile and Aragon, which is Spain. The reason given was that they corrupted the Moranos by secretly engaging them in disloyalty to Christianity. The Jews had till August 1st, 1492, to make arrangements for their departure. In theory, they could take their wealth with them, since, however, the export of gold, silver, or any other precious metals was forbidden them, they were reduced practically to loading themselves with whatever goods they could purchase and carry, which obviously could not be much. To the Jews, the edict meant something very much worse than poverty. Can't take your gold, can't take your silver, can't take your money with you. You only take what you can buy and carry, which isn't much. These are established homes that these people had. We've been here. The Jews claim to have been there since the time of King Solomon. Imagine the established lands, homes, property, wealth, trees, fruit, businesses. Imagine all of that establishment, and you got to get out now. You got to go. When we were expelled from Spain, where did we run to? We ran to Portugal, right? Let's look and see what this says.
João III insists that Portugal have its own, and by fifth term up age-old into Portugal, swelling the Jewish party too. During the expulsion of 1492, thousands of Jews flee over the border into Portugal, swelling the Jewish population there and stirring up age-old racial tensions. In the resulting turmoil, Portuguese Jews are forced to convert to Christianity, and by 1532, King João III insists that Portugal have its own inquisition. For 10 years, wealthy Portuguese conversos used every form of persuasion possible, including enormous cash bribes, to convince the Pope not to bring the Inquisition to their new sanctuary.
Many of the Spanish converts then came racing into Portugal, and in fact, they soon outnumber the Portuguese community, thinking that they'll be safe there until, of course, the Portuguese institute their own Inquisition, and then it goes the other way.
The Portuguese Inquisition quickly sets to work against the usual suspects. Between 1547 and 1580, 34 auto de fe judgment ceremonies take place in Portugal, with almost 2,000 penitents and 169 executions. The persecutions are so deadly that conversos, many of whom have only recently immigrated to Portugal from Spain, choose to move back to their homeland and face what seems to be the lesser of two evil institutions.
We ended up going to Portuguese or to Portugal. They opened up an auto da fe after so long, and it was so bad there, a lot of Jews went back to Spain rather to suffer the lesser of two evils. So you got to think the mental, emotional turmoil. Imagine losing your home. Imagine losing your house. You probably don't even own your house. It would still hurt. Imagine losing something that you own, your family has owned for generations, something y'all been working on, building on, something you have plans for in the future. It's taken from you, stripped from you. You got to go now. You got to get out of here. You got to think about the elderly. You have to think about the children. You got to think about yourself. You got to think about what you can carry, how much of it, how much goods. Where are you going? Where are we even going? Where are we finna head to? The Holy Roman Empire, they're everywhere. Where are we even gonna go? Where are we finna go? You go talk to a person in Catholicism, they get real itchy when you start talking about the Inquisitions. Yeah, it was bad. I get it. But we're the hate group. We're the cult. We're the people that's so wrong. We're the bad guys. Just something to look at, man. Just give some perspective. You got anything else you want to bring out? You on mute, by the way.
Nah. Sorry.
Right. So water for everybody that tuned in. We didn't get into, well, we did. We touched on a little bit. We didn't get into too much of it. The expulsion of the Jews. That's a big part in history as well. But yeah, man, crack open your history books, get in there and start reading more. It's a lot of our history that we don't know because we don't like to read. We don't like to look for it, right? So with that, we want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to the Most High God, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Hamashiach, Yahweh Shah. I want to say Shalom.
Till next time, Shalom.